Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.
Helping you lead a healthier life. This is Kara's Cures.
Hi everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm Kara Sundlun. Welcome to Kara's Cures. This is where we explore cutting-edge wellness from credible sources. And so many of us have goals to bring a little something different into 2026. Well, Dr. Laura Saunders is a psychologist with Hartford Healthcare's Institute of Living. We're thrilled to have her back again to help us kick off the new year with 7 guidelines for a better quality of life in 2026. I think that is an awesome intention, resolution, what do you ever call it? I guess we're not supposed to be like so resolute, more about bringing some new things in, and that sounds great. So thanks for being here.
Happy New Year. Thanks for having me, Kara. Yes, and I really do love to start off the new year with some, as you said, intentions. It doesn't have to be like resolutions, because then people feel like, oh, I fell off that wagon and now it's, now it's gone. So it's a shift. It's making changes. It's being more forward thinking. And it only takes one change to really recreate kind of the dynamic of your life.
Okay, so we're going to give you 7 guidelines. However, you could just focus on one of them and feel meaningful change.
Absolutely. And the goal is to be more open and to find kind of what resonates with you, but it just takes one change to put you on a new path.
So let's talk about number 1. If those of you in the podcast sphere, maybe you've heard of Mel Robbins and the Let Them Theory. It's been a best-selling book. I know I've been a fan of Mel Robbins for a long time, but in the psychological world, let it go is important, right? So how do we do that? And why do we do that?
So I too have been listening to a lot of Mel Robbins. I listened to her podcast. Actually on New Year's Eve, I listened to the 8 tips from experts that will kind of change your new year, right? So I do a lot of this stuff too, to really kind of create more openness in myself. And it really starts with letting go of things we cannot control, right? And Mel Robbins is the let them theory. And I think I like to clarify that it's not just, sometimes people misinterpret it as like let them do whatever they want to you. That's actually not it at all. It really is about the mindset shift of letting go of things you cannot control in order to reclaim your peace, in order to reclaim your sanity and your energy and your happiness. So it's, if someone wants to be mean to you, let them. It doesn't mean you don't set a boundary, and we'll talk about that, but it's not letting people do whatever they want to you. It's letting go of controlling what's going on and controlling outcomes.
Yeah, and she talks about in her book how she was really over controlling stuff with her kids, with her husband. I mean, she's very relatable because she has a lot of the same things we all deal with if you have a busy family life. But she said she realized that she was trying to make everybody feel better, or everybody feel something that she thought was good. And instead, she was constantly coming up feeling exasperated, disappointed, even left out with her friends. So I think it's hard, though, when we say let it go. I just want to dig a little deeper, because that doesn't mean that you tolerate being a doormat or anything like that. I think her next part that she talked about was let me. So, like, what could you change on your front? Like, is there anything that you could do about this situation, and you work on that side of the street and not the part where it requires someone else to change? Is that right?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And again, whatever the little mantra is in your head, right? It's sometimes I say things like, is this something I can control, or is this something that's out of my control? And if it's out of my control, I need to focus on letting it go, right? I need to let go. And by let go, what we mean is let go of the outcome, right? It's not let them walk all over me. It's let go of the outcome. Let other people conduct themselves in a way that they're going to do that. But let me focus on what I can control, what I cannot control, and focus on making healthier and more positive decisions for myself.
Okay, so let's just say you had an argument maybe with your boss, and you're feeling really bad about it, and you're maybe upset because that person has a little power in your life, or anyone like that, someone who would make you feel like they've got some power over you, and you have an argument. The let them theory in practice wouldn't be that you tell yourself you're supposed to be happy about this. You just wouldn't I guess, focus on changing them.
Right. And in that example, I like that example a lot. In that example, what you would be letting go of is what we do in those situations is ruminate. We review the issue and the problem over and over and over again. What could we have said differently? How could we have responded in a different way? Right. It's that rumination, and that's often very negative. It's that cognitive rumination that really tears us down. And so you have this negative interaction. Okay, what pieces can I take from this feedback that are helpful for me? What pieces do I think are not helpful for me? And then, maybe revisit a conversation when you are of more clear thinking. I mean, it's enacting strategies, but not engaging in a behavior like rumination that's just going to serve to tear you down.
Yeah, I mean, I know Mel Robbins says these are 2 words that can change your life. So I do find myself when I remember saying, let them. So it's an easy thing to remember. So it might be something we want to practice if you feel like you're either people pleasing too much or worried about everyone's opinions and everybody's happiness too much.
Right. Right. And again, it's what, and I say this to myself, can I control? Is this something I can control? Is this something I should be trying to control? Or is this something I need to let go of the outcome? Right. So it's using these kind of mantras as a way to give yourself more kind of peace and emotional energy.
Yeah. So number 2, ignore negative people. This is sort of an offshoot of the let them theory, but it's not always easy when people are around you and they make you feel a certain way, or there might be someone who's in your life. People might have I don't have this, I'll be clear, but an angry mother-in-law who's always intruding, and you feel drained, or somebody, a little energy vampire in your world.
Yes, we all have these people in our lives. Sometimes it's at work, sometimes it's in our personal lives. And it's not always possible to sort of cut people out, right? But what it is it's pulling away from or creating some emotional boundaries around those people that tend to be very negative towards us or very critical towards us, also known as the haters. Because what we do oftentimes is have what we call a negative filter, right? So I'm not taking in the people that are saying positive things about me. I'm only taking in the people that are saying negative things. Or that's the thing that I remind myself of. So it's really trying to embrace the people that are warm and welcoming and stay away from the haters, or shift your energy away from the haters.
Yeah. Okay. So they say instead, you're like, well, what am I going to think about? You got to focus on love. So you might actually, we have this power to control our focus. So we could shift it to gratitude or to someone who does feel good in your life.
Right. And that's another great example, right? Reshifting to, okay, well, I had this negative interaction, or this is, I frequently have this negative interaction with this person, and, I just need to shift the focus away. But what do I need to be thankful for? Who's someone that makes me feel good about myself? Who's someone I enjoy spending time with, right? Refocusing your energy to be with people that you are more, as they say, simpatico.
Okay. Number 3, give it time. With a dose of patience, time can be healing. We can all get argumentative. We can all have fights. We can all have these things that upset us. Do you mean that we should count to 10, or what do you mean by give it time?
By time, what we generally mean is not minutes or hours. Sometimes it's days or weeks, or sometimes even months. Now, I'm not necessarily referring to things or to issues where there's very significant trauma or really deep-seated grief, although grief actually is something that can improve over time as well. And time, just the simple elapse of time, doesn't always heal things. It's what you do with that time. It's bringing more positive things into your life, but knowing that grief or loss that you feel now might feel a little bit better in a month or 2 months. When I'm in therapy with someone, I frequently will say, because I do more long-term work, I frequently will say, all right, so today is Wednesday, January 7th. How were things, how would you have rated your depression or grief or loss or trauma or whatever the issue is, back in September or in the summer, right? So we look back at periods of time, not necessarily, well, I'm better today than tomorrow, although that might be something also, but really looking at chunks of time and making those self comparisons, because it just helps you be a little bit more patient with yourself, because sometimes progress doesn't feel measurable. But if you look back and you say, yeah, I definitely feel better than I did in September. Okay, well, now we have a little bit more of a marker to go by.
Yeah, we can say we're moving in the right direction, and that can feel better than, oh my gosh, I'm spiraling. Okay, because things really don't always happen overnight like we want them to.
Right.
So really hard
Yeah.
for the teens too. I know sometimes you tell them give it time and they want everything in a second. So something to remind ourselves that, it's a good thing to teach our kids, but ourselves too, that we have to be a little bit patient in this world of instant gratification.
Yeah, and that's another great point, because, right, it is harder for teens who are more egocentric and want that instant gratification. But that's where we have to really work hard to be role models and say, I'm showing you that I'm giving myself the grace and patience to wait something out, or to, let's see how this plays out. Let's not just react to it today. So to be a role model in that situation as well.
Something else that certainly teens deal with, but I think we all do. And you say, we're talking about 7 habits to have better mental health in 2026. Number 4, do not compare. That social comparison is the thief of all joy. So we know that,
So
but it's hard to do it. Sometimes you catch yourself doing it, right?
it is hard to do it. Well, the other reason it's hard to do is because we go on our phones and devices and we scroll through and look at the highlights of someone else's life and compare it to the lowlights of our life, right? And so when you're comparing, oh, look, someone's got this and this and this going on, and I don't have those things, or I don't have as much money, or I don't have as nice clothes, or my kids aren't as good to me as this person, whatever it is, right? All that comparison only serves to make you feel inadequate about yourself and your life. So as I said earlier today in Great Day, the only thing that where comparison is good is to look back and say, well, I feel better today than I did yesterday, or I feel like I'm moving forward at work, more so than I was earlier in the fall, right? You can make self comparisons, and if you feel like you're sliding back into an old habit, than you were a couple of months ago, maybe you'd been exercising more, or eating a little bit better, or getting better sleep, and you feel like you're sliding off of that. Well, then, okay, then do a little self check. But that's the only person I want you to compare yourself to is yourself, so that you remain open to change.
Okay. Yeah, that's really, I know. Let me ask you this. What do we do when as adults, maybe teenagers and kids don't know it as much. As adults, we might be very aware that we're comparing ourselves to someone who their career went better, or they seem to have a lot more money, or their family life is going better. You're having trouble with your spouse or your kids, and theirs looks perfect. So we know not to do that it's the thief of all joy. But when you find yourself in that comparing mind, what do we do? What do we say to get out of it?
Well, again, I always start with identifying the pattern that you're engaging in. Like, why am I feeling so crappy right now? Okay, well, I was just scrolling through social media and I saw that this person had a great time and I didn't get invited, right? I mean, whatever the comparison could be. So it's first identifying the pattern that you're engaging in, and then sometimes using some what we call cognitive restructuring. So thinking about, okay, well, this is not helpful for me right now, because I need to, focus on work. I need to, plan dinner. What do I need to do in the here and now to help myself feel better? And so it's bringing that mindfulness, right? Mindfulness is being in the here and now non-judgmentally. And I think that's the piece of social comparison that people forget, is that generally there's judgment that's part of social comparison. When we come back to not being non-judgmental towards yourself, and maybe towards others as well, it's having that grace and saying, I'm doing the best that I can.
Yeah. I want to bring up the non-judgmental to someone else too. I tell my kids that all the time. Don't judge. And, because they can be, I think younger people can be more negative, like so-and-so did this and so-and-so did that. And why is that person so, maybe that's part of being young. But do you find that when we're harsh on others, we're also harsh on ourselves? And maybe that's a reason that we shouldn't put that negative lens towards someone else?
Yeah, I think that's another great point. Yes, that when we're harsh on others, we call that a projection, right? So we take the negative things that we feel about ourselves and we project it onto someone else. Sometimes we project it onto our spouse or our partner or our kids or a friend or our coworker, right? We take those negative that negative self-view and we project it onto someone else. So again, it's looking at that pattern, like, how is it that all the people in my life are so negative? Oh, wait, maybe it's because I'm actually negative about myself, right? So it's really looking at those patterns and realizing that those things that we tend to think about other people are likely things that we do to ourselves as well.
Yeah, or something we don't want to tolerate in ourselves for sure, right? All right, we're talking about 7 habits, 7 guidelines for better mental health in 2026. We're going to take a brief break with one of our sponsors for a moment. We'll be back to finish the next steps of 5, 6, and 7.
Struggling with gambling? Wheeler Health's Better Choice program offers personalized support and treatment to help you regain control. Visit WheelerHealth.org to learn more and take the first step towards recovery today.
Thanks for being here with CURES, where we explore cutting-edge wellness from credible sources. And we're talking about bringing in the intention of having better mental health in 2026 with 7 guidelines, 7 mental health guidelines for a better life in 2026. I'm joined by psychologist Dr. Laura Saunders. She's at the Premier Institute of Living, part of Hartford Healthcare, and one of our frequent guests here to just kind of, we love how you keep it simple for us. So we've done 1 through 4. We're going to go on to step 5. We'll review them at the end in case you're taking notes. All right, number 5, it's okay to not have everything figured out. Yeah, I think sometimes we feel like we need to know all the answers right now or we're very anxious.
That, Kara, makes me want to take a deep breath and kind of, breathe it out. Because just this morning, I was driving to the studio for a great day. And I have this like car issue and I'm like, I can't figure out how to manage it. And I just literally said to myself, just breathe it through. The solutions will come to you. Right. And I sort of let it go and I stopped thinking about it. And I said, I don't know. I don't know yet how I'm going to solve this. I don't know yet what I'm going to do. And then an idea came to me a couple hours later. So, it's really giving yourself the grace not to have everything figured out. And, a corollary to this is being okay with asking for help. Because I think that's a struggle that a lot of people have. They feel like I need to do everything on my own, but it's okay to ask for help. And asking for help doesn't mean like therapeutic help. It could be asking a friend, asking an adult child, asking a parent or an in-law. Asking for help can really be such a weight off your shoulders.
Yeah. I think, women, maybe we're more guilty of this. I often, when my plate is over full, I'm thinking of how many of these 10 things done. And lately I've tried to remind myself, like, maybe I should ask my husband to do 1 or 2 of them. And he would if I asked, right? But I would have to ask and not tell, nobody knows what's all on your plate or what's going through your head. So the idea that we could be a little bit more like a CEO and delegate or ask someone like, I'm overwhelmed. What do you think about this? What I love about my job is when I don't know the answer, I can go to someone like an expert like you, say, what do I do about this? And trust what they say. So we could do that a little bit more in our own lives, be a good reporter and find someone who's a little bit better at something than you and ask them for help.
Right. It's okay to say, I don't know. And it's okay not to have all the answers. Sometimes just sitting on it will help you or asking for help.
Yeah. Number 6, expect yourself to change. Now, I told you earlier, I thought that's positive. Like if I'm working on something, I'm like, yay, changes are happening. But sometimes what you're saying is we get a little upset when things start changing, especially if they weren't changes that we wanted.
Right. Again, that comes back to the what can we and what can we not control. But I do think it's we've talked about this here before. It's a growth mindset, right? It's openness to change, right? Sometimes I just want things to stay the same and just like, let me just kind of keep the stability for a while. But again, when there's things I don't have control over or a hurdle comes my way or a barrier or, something shifts, it's breathing into the fact that things will change, I have the skills I have the tools, or I have the openness to ask for help so that I can better address change. We have to allow ourselves some amount of change, or else that emotional rigidity will really be so debilitating. The only, as the expression goes, the only constant is change.
Yeah.
And it's that mental and emotional flexibility is what allows us to adapt to the challenges before us.
Yeah, I was just reading something that said, and I know you say how much grit is important, but grit basis, goes to, being resilient and figuring things out. But that mental flexibility, the idea of like changing your thought about something, is one of the key components to have good mental health. If we're too rigid, we really can't feel good.
Right. And that is it. Mental flexibility, mental and emotional flexibility really is the key to mental health, and the ability to adjust to the challenges that come before us, to be vulnerable, to say, I don't know how to solve this, or I'm not sure who to even ask for help. And then shifting your mindset and identifying those really negative patterns, those negative thought patterns that we engage in, because they can be so debilitating.
Yeah. Number 7, boundary setting. And we talked about this on Great Day Connecticut. My co-host Scott Haney said that's really hard for him, that he finds himself just saying yes, yes, yes when anyone wants him to do something. And it can be hard because I guess if we're going to set a boundary, we have to change some expectations. But why is learning the art of setting boundaries important for our mental health?
Right. I go back to the old adage, when the oxygen drops in the airplane, put your own mask on first before you put the mask on of someone else. If we don't do things to prioritize self-care, and there's a difference between self-care and being selfish, and I think a lot of times people blend those two things together. Self-care is addressing your own needs so that you can be available to help others. So often as parents, we just feel like we have to put aside all our needs and just focus on the needs of our children. But then we are role models for them that we don't take care of ourselves. So the more we can focus on some amount of self-care, doing what's important for you, you're then a role model for your children or your spouse or your, siblings or whoever. And then you can move forward together. But that often means setting a boundary and not overextending yourself to the point of sheer exhaustion.
Yeah, you say, remember that your peace is more important than someone's approval. So this is especially difficult for people pleasers.
Yeah. And you know what? We can want the approval of others, but if we don't have the approval of ourselves, it's not gonna stick. Right. It's, at different points we've talked about how important negative self-talk is to when you engage in such negative self-talk, that's the script that goes on and on in your head. And when that happens, it sucks the joy out of everything. So the more you can prioritize taking care of yourself, focusing on those negative thoughts, and being okay with sometimes letting people down.
Yeah, putting your own needs ahead, and especially moms, we feel guilty about that. Sometimes you think there's a lot of cultural expectations of, put everybody else first, or get whatever's left after you've done everything for the family or done everything for your kids, and then okay, if I have a minute, really we can't pour from an empty cup. We know this. So the idea that we could put some boundaries, what do you really have to do, and then set some boundaries so that you can actually give more of yourself.
Right. If you are so emotionally depleted, you can't be a caregiver. You made a reference in one of the segments on Great Day today to being part of the sandwich generation, right? Those individuals that are taking care of their parents and still have, children, whether it's young or teens or young adult children that you're taking care of. You get sandwiched in there, and in that kind of sandwich mentality, your needs often get squished out. So the more you can do things to focus on your needs helps you be a better caregiver on either end. But unfortunately, as a parent, guilt is something that you have to learn to live with. Try to minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah, in our final few moments together, I just want to give people the final 7 one more time. So maybe we can invite you to pick one, as you said. We don't have to do all of them. Right now, my mind's going, oh, how am I going to do all these 7 things? And I'm remembering, oh, we don't have to do all 7. Just pick one. So don't be an overachiever about this. We're not trying to be perfectionists. But number 1, let it go. The let them theory, start using that. Let them, just focus on what you can control. Number 2, ignoring the haters, ignore those negative people. Give it time. Patience can help, right? Don't compare, because comparison is a thief of all joy. It's okay to not have everything figured out. So maybe you want to just make it your mantra. I don't know. There's more than one way to solve a problem, as you told us. Expect change, because that's a constant, and boundary setting. It's okay to say no. I'll put you on the spot, Dr. Saunders. Are there any one of these 7 that you're going to pick this year? Is it one that resonates most with you? And then I'll pick one.
So I'm really focusing on letting go and let them, right? Letting other people, not trying to control the outcomes. And that's both in my personal life and in my work life. Really focusing on what do I have control over? What can I do to help myself? And what do I just need to let go of?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. In fact, I was going to pick that one too. But I think, so I'll pick that one too, and then I'll put on a little baby to it of being patient, because I want everything to change yesterday when I'm working on something. And so the idea that, a lot of times remembering that journey, what we're learning as we go through something, is the point. It's not always the result you're seeking to get.
That's a great point. It's the journey. It's not always the outcome.
So Dr. Laura Saunders, you can always find her. She's at Dr. Laura Saidi.
Dr. Laura Saunders Saidi, yes.
Dr. Laura Saunders Saidi on Instagram. And she's at Hartford Health. You can contact the Institute of Living if you think you need more help or more great programs right here in Connecticut. Thank you for listening to CURES. And Dr. Saunders, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Kara.
Have a great day, everyone, and be well.
CURES is sponsored by Wheeler Health's Better Choice program. More at wheelerhealth.org.